So yeah, look, we'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Lee. I work for a company called Amiqus. We are a video games industry recruiter. I've been doing my job in recruitment for over 20 years now, and in video games for 15. Um, so I've been around a fair bit. I've spoke to a lot of studios. I've worked with a lot of companies, hired a lot of different types of candidates, in terms of skill sets. The talk today is really to give you a little bit more information and clarity on sort of how to get your foot in the door with the industry. It can be, a difficult journey. It can be tough. It's a passion industry at the end of the day. So there is a lot of people sort of who want to work in games, but some of the things we'll talk about today, I think, will hopefully help to give you the edge. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Chris.
Hey everyone, so my name is Chris Molleson. I work with Amiqus as well. I've been in recruitment for I think about 10 years now, and in the games industry for the last 3.5. So I've been throughout that time, I've found a real passion for helping people get into the games industry, if that's fresh out of uni or if that's coming from another industry, and people are just passionate about video games. I just think it's a great industry, and it's something that we need to try and get more people into and kind of widen that world of game designers and creators. So really excited to do the chat today.
Cool, perfect. So I'm hoping I've managed to share my screen correctly and you can all see getting into games, how to stand out from the crowd. I'll move on to the next slide. Has that moved through, Leo?
It's moved through, Lee.
Yes, perfect. Leo, you're muted, but it's fine. So briefly, what we'll cover today, obviously the types of job roles in games, where to find them. We'll spend a little bit of time on how to present your CV. I think a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to the CV, it's not necessarily a document of everything you've ever done. It's a document of everything you've done that's relevant for the job that you're applying to. But we got some hints and tips that I think will help. We'll spend a little bit of time, well, no, a fair bit of time probably on portfolio tips, because I think that's probably where you can stand out the most. And then we've got a little bit of advice on sort of interview prep. Sometimes we do go through sort of interview journey as well, but I know the next talk after this is that, so I won't sort of step on toes. And then obviously Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, do pop them in the chat. We'll pick them up on at the end and sort of go through them. But yeah, I think, to be honest, mostly with the Q&A stuff, that's where the real value comes as well. So do not be afraid or shy to post questions. Okay, so let's get moving. So first and foremost, okay, we've done our degree, we've got our qualification, we've started work on the portfolio. Where do we look? Thankfully, the games industry is quite an online community. A lot of the video games people are quite technically adept. So there's plenty of websites out there. You've got standard job boards such as Indeed.com, which are sort of site aggregators. They kind of search the internet, people's websites, company websites, and pull them all into one place. So sometimes it's a nice starting point. It should never really be the end point, because there might be a lot of software engineer in fintech or artist in marketing and stuff like that. But it can also be quite useful to understand the types of job titles that are available to your skill set. You've got industry specific websites like gamesjob.live. You've got gamesindustry.biz, which is again another super useful tool, really. There's industry organizations. You've got Yuki, you've got Tiga, you've got people like us, Amiqus, our job site. We work with a bunch of studios throughout the UK and Europe. It's a good place to sort of start your search. Into games, GamesMap, LinkedIn. We will talk a lot about LinkedIn throughout this call, so I'm going to apologize now. But if you are not on LinkedIn already, I highly recommend getting on there. It's sort of like a professional business Facebook, but for want of a better word. But it is a really useful tool, not just to be found, but also to find people. And again, I'll talk through that in a bit more detail when we get to the portfolio section. Obviously, there's the studio websites. Do check in regularly. bookmark them, find the studios that you like the look of, maybe do a bit of search around the sorts of job titles that are relevant, available for your sort of relevant skills. And then there's also the games industry Slack. If you're familiar with Slack, it's sort of a chat board, I suppose, a message board. There is a UK games industry Slack available. Um, I don't know. Their criteria is relatively strict. I think graduates are fine to go on there, but people do post a fair amount on there in the sort of jobs page or looking for or looking to hire. So it's another place to sort of just engage with the community. As well as that, I would say, which isn't on here, sort of the networking side. Chris, do you want to sort of talk about the types of shows and stuff that are out there?
Yeah, definitely. So throughout the year, you have different kind of conventions and that kind of thing. So within the UK specifically, a big one is Develop, that happens every year in Brighton. So you'll have different talks, different booths, and everything where you can go and chat for 15, 20 minutes with people at the various studios that have booths there. And there's usually a portfolio review section, which can be wonderful. And then just check throughout the year. There are tons of different shows spread throughout the UK. That we regularly go to as well, and it just kind of gives you a chance to speak to the creators of the games, find out what it's like to say to work at studios, or maybe talk about their own personal journeys of how they got into games and what brought them to their current role, and so you can kind of take a look at what you can be doing to go from there.
Cool, perfect. So next slide. I found a job I like the sound of. What next? So yeah. It always start by researching the studio. It's surprising. It doesn't happen very often, thankfully, but you do get sometimes people coming through and they're like, "Oh, what do you know about us?" You know, get to a first stage interview. What do you know about us? And so, well, I don't know any of the games you played, or I don't know much about the studio or when you started. They're not necessarily looking, in an interview stage, if they ask you, tell us a bit, what do you know about the company? They're not looking for you to recite the Wikipedia page. But you need to have some sort of understanding and appreciation of the work that they've done. So again, research the studio, check out their website. That's usually the first and best place. They'll have an about us page, sorry. And they might have a team page where you can sort of find out, see a little bit more detail about the types of people that are working there, their background, their social channels. I think one of the things to consider when you are investigating and sort of researching a company, you want to make sure it's the sort of place you want to work. And it is difficult to get a feel for culture fit, just off of a company's website. Because look, it's curated, it's polished, it's tells you all the things you want to hear. Check out their socials, check out LinkedIn. Um, how often do they post? What sort of content do they post? That can give you a nice sort of feel for what's important to them as a business. Um, there's that word again, LinkedIn. Um, LinkedIn, you can search LinkedIn on companies and you can find out a pretty good breakdown of the types of people that are working there. How big is the art team? You can click on the company link and it'll say, right, there's 67 people working here, and it'll list them all. And you can find out their job titles. And again, how long have they been there? Do people tend to stay? Is it sort of short term? What sort of job titles do they have? Can I see someone who joined 3 years ago as a junior artist? Have they moved up in that time or not? It just gives you a bit more of a feel for that. And then obviously, in terms of sort of um, next steps, you're looking to sort of use the research that you've done on the company to tailor your application to that studio. I would always tailor an application to a studio, but no, in terms of sort of not taking over this conversation, Chris, do you want to talk about tailoring application and
Yeah, definitely. So when you look at the job spec, like it says here, review the job spec carefully, but don't be put off. So a lot of times on a job spec like this, it's a big wish list. So there might be 2 or 3 points that those are the crucial things. So make sure that you're looking at that, and how you can tailor what you've done to those things that they're looking for. So, you may have done a really cool game jam project that fits perfectly to the style that they're looking for, but it, make sure that you're kind of singing and dancing about that on your tailored application. Don't expect the hiring manager within the studio to kind of put two and two together from there. You really need to bring it to their attention, and the only way that you can do that, and you've got the control of that, is by looking through exactly what they're looking for, and kind of taking a step back, looking at your experience, the stuff that you've worked on, and how that really fits to what they're looking for, and then you can send a really good tailored message to them. So that can be through a cover letter, or through your CV as well, which I think is equally as important to kind of going through and highlighting certain things.
Mm.
So sorry, go on, Lee. You had something to say
No,
there.
no, no. I think the trick you've got to understand is a hiring manager only has a limited number of hours in the
Yeah.
day to review CVs, and they're probably getting a fair number, especially if it's a junior or entry level role. You've got to take that opportunity to sort of grab their attention. I think there's a stat. It's like a decision is made on a CV usually within the first 10, 15 seconds of looking at it, which probably is true, especially for entry level stuff. And the way that, and this will come back in sort of, we'll talk about laying out a CV and portfolio in a minute, but the thing you need to sort of consider psychologically when someone is reviewing a CV, they're scanning for keywords, they're scanning for relevant experience, and they need to see that written down. And you need them in their mind to say yes 4 or 5 times in a row. You can have all the same information on a CV, but in the wrong order. And if they say no 4 or 5 times in a row, they're probably going to reject you. If they say yes 4 or 5 times in a row, they're probably going to move you through to sort of first stage interview. And they're saying yes when they see, again, these keywords. So I'm hiring an environment artist, for example, and I need them to have Unreal Engine or experience with Unreal Engine and maybe Maya. So I've got 100 CVs and 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to go through that. I'm scanning through and I'm reading. It's like John Smith, blah, 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 environment, yeah, tick, yeah. I'm worked on Unreal, yeah, worked with 3D modeling, yeah, worked on LOD, whatever it is, tick, yep, 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 yep. I'm probably moving you through to next stage or shortlisting you. If I open that CV and I'm hit with irrelevant info, okay, I'm looking for an environment artist with Unreal, but the first thing you tell me is, oh, I'm do 3D art and I really like doing character stuff and I do some environment as well. So, okay, well, you've already told me you're not right because you're a character artist. And even if you can do both, the first thing you talk about is character art. So I'm going to assume that's the thing you like the most or you're best at. Whenever you list anything in terms of skills or experience, whatever's at the top is assumed, rightly or wrongly, to be the thing you like the most, know the most, are the best at, do the most of. It doesn't have to be. Your CV should reflect, and I'm getting ahead of myself now, the requirements and priorities of what the role is looking for. And to find that out, look at the job spec. It might be 10 bullet points long. The first 3 or 4, the bullet points that usually matter, and you want your CV and portfolio, and we'll go through that in a bit more detail, to almost mirror the layout of the job spec, because the job spec might say we are hiring for an experienced, first bullet point, must have experience working with Unreal Engine. I'm going to assume anyone who doesn't say they've got Unreal Engine is probably a no on that job. So make sure you talk about it. I'm an aspiring environment artist who has experience working with Unreal as well as other programs. Okay, cool. Unreal, tick, yes. And then maybe if it's your education, whilst at university, I studied 3D modeling, where we learned how to use Unreal, including Unreal Engine 5 and Lumen and Nanite and all these nice keywords that you're probably going to sort of see mirrored. You're making it as difficult as possible for a hiring manager to not understand what you are. So yeah, hi, I am what you're looking for because this is the order you put it in the job spec, and here's what I've done. So yeah, that's why it's important to review the job spec and to tailor your CVs.
Yeah. I'd actually like to add on to that too when
Mm,
going through the keywords and everything. It's super important when you're setting up your LinkedIn profile as well. Make sure that you're adding in the keywords that you can be found if, say, a recruiter
mm.
at a studio or something is looking through, and they're looking for someone that's worked with Maya, worked with Unity, whatever it might be. Make sure that you've got your keywords set up on your profile and not just in kind of the skills section. Make sure when you're putting in your experience, uh, that you can kind of type out what's there. So it'd be like, oh, I worked on this project. We worked in this engine using this kind of tech, and it just shows that that you've got that experience with exactly what they're looking for. It helps you stand out a bit.
Cool. Perfect. Next slide. Oh no, it's not working. Hold on. Let me press this button. Typical. I knew we'd have some issue. All right, here we go. How about now? There we go. What needs to be on my CV? Chris, you want to go take this one?
Yeah, definitely. So first off, contact details. Please, please, please put your contact details on your CV.
You can have the best CV in the world. If we can't
Yeah,
get in touch with you, it's pointless.
and
Yeah.
it does happen. So just honestly put a mobile number and an email. At the very least, put an email, but I'd highly recommend putting both in there. Um, Again, skills like we talked about, it can be really helpful when someone's reviewing a CV if you have a bullet point list of like your you know biggest skill set. Uh, if that's what code you're working in or what kind of art packages you're working in, whatever that might be. If someone that's looking through your CV can see that, okay, boom, 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 they've got all of those things, perfect. Um, then also working portfolio links. This actually happens all the time. I'll be looking through a CV and be like, oh, great, let's take a look at what they've done, and then the portfolio link is old or it doesn't work or whatever it might be. And I love looking through portfolios, so I'm always disappointed when I can't see the amazing artwork. Lee, I think probably has something to add to this one as well.
Yeah, with the portfolio, well, with all of it really, email link as well. Be wary of how you're formatting your CV as a PDF or Word doc. Um, Sometimes we see people format their CV as a PDF and it's sort of an image on the page, so you can't highlight text, you can't click hyperlinks. Make sure the hyperlinks work, of course. And that can be quite frustrating. Again, if you've got a hiring manager who's working through a big chunk of CVs and then you've done it as an image and then I can't even highlight it, I have to type in www.36 through 4. It's like, right, okay. I mean, rightly or wrongly, they're already frustrated before they found your stuff. It doesn't help if yeah, you're kind of
Yeah.
making it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, and then moving on from that, so you've got the software that you know and you've used. Like I said, put that in the skills section. But again, add it to your experience as you're working your way through the CV. So if you have a hiring manager looking through your CV, it's like, okay, oh great, they know Maya, and then looking through, first bit of experience, worked on this project in Maya, and again, and it just kind of reinforces that, and it demonstrates that you do have the working knowledge of it. So make sure that those key points kind of keep appearing through your CV. I think, like Lee said, you want to say yes 4 or 5 times before you say no to experience or what you're looking for. Um, and then also platforms and engines that you've worked on or have learned. Now, if you are completely set on one platform where most of your experience is, but you're open to working in another one, make sure that you do add the little bits that you've done with other engines, because sometimes if a studio, say they're using their own engine, or they want someone to work obviously in a specific engine, but maybe that experience isn't as important as the ability to adapt to what they want within that engine. Then
Mm,
showing that you've worked on multiple things is really helpful, even if, say, 80% of your experience is in Unity or Unreal or whatever it might be. But there's so many different engines out there and everything that you can't have expected to have worked with. So showing that you're adaptable with different engines is really helpful.
yeah. And I was going to say, I think at this point, it's also worth sort of clarifying. You will have multiple versions of your CV. You must have.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to rewrite it every time because that's a lot of admin. But what you will find is again, we'll use art as an example, but this applies to sort of the other disciplines as well. You'll have your 3D generalist version of your CV, which covers most areas, and it's a bit of a jack of all, you know. But then if your skill set is predominantly environment art, and thankfully at sort of junior entry level, you tend to find people hire 3D generalists or just programmers before they start moving into like, oh, I'm a character artist, an environment artist, a lighting artist, or rendering programmer. You sort of specialize usually after sort of a couple of years in the industry. Um, but you do get the odd sort of junior environment artist, junior character artist. If you are genuinely sort of a bit of both, you want to have a character heavy version of the CV and an environment heavy version of a CV, and then like the general 3D generalist. Um, are you picking up that noise, by the way? Someone started cutting their.
No, you're fine.
No, I someone started mowing their lawn outside the window. Um, and you will use them depending on what you're applying to, because again, if you sent the character focused one, and I would almost put my name and then underneath character artist, um, you're basically saying my name, what you're looking for. The opposite happens if I send the character artist CV to the environment artist. You're saying, here's my name. I'm not what you're after. Great. Then you know, because you've done two things. First of all, you've basically said, I'm not what you're looking for, but also you've shown you've not understood what you've applied to. Now, either because you've just sent the same CV willy-nilly to everything and not done any tailoring at all, that doesn't show much effort. Um, or you've sent the CV and you don't understand what the difference between a character and environment artist is. Because if you did, why are you showing me this or telling me this when that's not relevant for environment art? So you're doing a few things by tailoring. You're making it obvious that I am what you're after, but also I know the details of what makes an environment artist over a character artist or vice versa. Um, bear that in mind. So when Chris is talking about the platforms and engines, again, it's not necessarily every platform you've ever worked on. If the job spec is, we need Unreal, we've got to work on Unreal, this is an Unreal Engine project, we need you to use Lumen and UE5 and this and that, then fine. Maybe put Unity down at the bottom if you've used it a bit, but it shouldn't be the first thing you talk about. It should be Unreal. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. So, next bit, responsibilities and achievements. So it's really important to, you know, sell yourself in a sense on your CV and showing what say what the team did. So say you're a part of a project that well, I'll use a game jam as an example. And okay, we worked on this project for a game jam, 72-hour turnaround or whatever it was, and this is what we completed. So that's great. But then make sure that you go into what you did. It's wonderful to talk about the team, but they're not hiring the team; they're hiring you. So make sure that you really sing and dance about what you've done. So, oh, I took on the responsibility of all of the art for the entire thing, and this included, these props, environment, all of that kind of stuff. Or it might be, I coordinated everyone within the project to make sure that everything was running on time and kind of worked as a pseudo producer or something like that. Make sure that you're putting what you've done individually within that team front and center within those things. And it's
They're
same
hiring
with,
you,
yeah,
not the team.
exactly. So same with anyone that's been in the industry for a few years as well. When you're going over, say you're going from a bigger studio, but you want to join a smaller team. Make sure that your individual contributions and what you did within the larger team are quite clear, because that will be so important
Mm.
to a small indie team. Um, Same kind of goes with the challenges that you've overcome. So I mean, anyone will know that there are going to be a ton of challenges within a game dev cycle, and if you're putting your best foot forward on your CV, definitely share some of the challenges that you faced, and how you overcame it, because it will highlight to the studio that if you come into the role, you're not going to see a challenge come up or something that's just not working, and then completely shut down. You're going to be able to kind of take looks at how you can
It,
overcome it, the steps that you
mm.
can take. Go on, Lee.
No, 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 no. You bang on. I think it's a really good reflection of character.
Yeah.
It's hard to get across character, personality, drive, passion on a CV and a portfolio. There are ways, and we'll tell you about them. But a lot of people don't realize or aren't aware that, especially for junior mid-level, so junior grad role, hiring managers looking for two things. First of all, can you do the job? And do you have the skills, experience, technical ability to do what we're looking for? But secondly, and maybe more importantly, can I manage you doing that job? Would I want to work with you doing that job? You could be the best artist programmer in the world, but if you're a bit stubborn, if you're a bit stuck in your ways, if you don't take critique well, if you're a bit, um, if you don't like taking yourself out of your comfort zone, yeah, you could do it, but I don't know if I'd want to work with you doing it, you know. So when you're talking about challenges and demonstrating that potential sort of attitude and vulnerability, it's quite endearing and shows a lot. You know, it's not just enough that you can do it, but do you enjoy doing it? Are you open to critique? Are you self-aware enough to say, hey, here's this cool thing I done, put it out in the world. What do you guys think? Oh, that's great. You know, if I'm working with you and the piece of the project you're working on turns out gets canned, that happens, sadly. Are you going to fall to pieces? Do you really struggle with these sorts of challenges? You know, if I say to you, hey, I know you're great at doing manga characters, but this project needs some more realistic stuff. Are you the sort of person that's going to be like, oh, I've never done that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know even know where to start. Okay. Or are you the sort of person who's going to be like, I've never done that. That sounds cool. Let's have a play. Let's figure it out. Hey, the next project's in uni. I've not used that much. Cool. Where do I start? You know, no one's perfect at everything first time. You will make mistakes, but talking about those challenges and more importantly, how you overcame them or and what you learn is a big part of the character building for, you know, to get your sort of foot in the door, really.
Mm. A really good example of this that I thought was really powerful and helped someone get a role last year when I was working with this candidate. They had done a project like this with a team just fresh out of uni, and it was a tablet game that then went that you could play like on the TV or whatever it might be. That would also they were trying to incorporate your mobile phone into it as well, and it was a really cool idea, but then the scope of it just made it so that it was kind of undeliverable in a sense for what they wanted to achieve. So he went through in really good detail on his CV how he scrapped the mobile side of it and they kind of reworked it so that the game was a better version of what it could be within just the tablet side. And I thought it shows kind of scope of vision of, oh, it'd be really cool if we did this, but then also understanding these are the limitations, let's rein it in. And it just kind of shows in the studio, okay, so if we need someone to work within these kind of ranges or whatever it might be, then that's cool. They can kind of rein everything in and tone it down for the
Mm.
project that's
It's
needed.
self-awareness, isn't it, as well, I
Self-awareness,
believe. Yeah.
exactly. Like Lee said, any cultural stuff that you can get across in the CV of what you're like as a person to work with is really important because it's there's a reason why throughout every interview process there's at least one stage that's completely focused on you as a person and how you're going to gel with the team because it's equally as important as skill set as
Mm.
long as you hit the right skill set for everything. It needs to be the right personality fit within the team as well. um,
Mm.
now, I think the next point is project details, but I think we've kind of touched on that throughout everything. Just make sure that you've got your project details on your CV, what you did. So, um, for example, if it was a first person shooter or if it was a 2D platform or a puzzle game, whatever it was, make sure you're showing the different projects that you've worked on, and then of
I would
course, as always, your
mm.
contributions. Go on, Lee.
I'd add as well that I think personal projects are a big thing. Um,
Yeah.
it's frustrating when you see people who maybe, have come out of uni and been out of uni for a year, and it happens, and their portfolio is, well, here's my final year piece. Cool. And here's the thing I did in my work experience. Cool. Where's the personal projects? Where's the self-learning? Where's the stuff you do because you actually like doing it? You know, your uni project, someone made you do that. Your course tutors made you do that. Your work experience, again, someone made you do that. But where's the stuff you do because you actually like it? It carries. as much, if not more weight. Some people shy away from sharing personal projects. It's not professional. It's more of a flavor of you. And we talk about, any game jams, any courses, any trainings, workshops you've done. Those are all examples of self-learning, self-motivated learning. Again, if I see someone go, hey, finish uni, but I was also been doing this YouTube Unreal Engine course, and I went to this game jam because I wanted to have a go on this, and I've been working on this personal project. I know a lad who he got a job working for Sony, primarily because he was, life happened, and one of his ways of sort of release was coding, and he built his own engine over time whilst sort of life was happening around him, and unfortunately wasn't able to try and secure a job. He had other commitments, family commitments, but this was his breakout. This was his sort of relaxation, his getting away from it all. And he walked into Sony interview, and he was very nervous, very shy. Communication was difficult, but he was just like, yeah, this is something I've been working on the last couple of years. It was not good. It's not going to give Unreal Engine a run for its money anytime soon or anything like that. But it it was such a reflection of his just out and out passion just to play and learn and try. And even sort of the studio, this is a technical director of 20 plus years. He looked at the project, the engine, and he was just like, Christ, I'm 20 years in the industry. I don't even know where to start with building something like this. And you've just been doing it for fun. No one paid you to do it. This is what you do. Imagine what you'll do if we start paying you. Jesus. They want to know if we lock you in a room with a computer or pad, 3D pad, art pad or whatever, you just do it because it's your release. It's you have fun doing it. And I'm not saying you need to sort of spend your every living moment doing this stuff. Of course not. You have to have a life, but you have to reflect some of the actual genuine passion and interest for it. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It just demonstrates that willingness to learn and put yourself out there and try new things and get stuck in.
Yeah. So I want to bring some attention to the chat. We've got a question from Jordan. A really good question, actually. So I'll read it out and then we can go to the points on it. So Jordan
Mm,
says, I'm a community manager with up to 5 years experience in esports and big name brands, but I'm trying to
mm,
get into the industry. What if we see an entry junior role, but it mentions X years in the games industry? Should people be put off by this, or
no.
should they still apply, but highlight their skills to show that they can do the role regardless of that? So yeah, definitely don't be put off. When you're looking to come into the industry from kind of a side industry like esports, or maybe it's like some sort of tech industry, right? Um, it's finding the right studio. Not every studio is going to be open to people that are coming in from an outside industry, and that kind of I don't personally like that, but it is what it is. I think there's so many great people that are looking to try to get into the industry that studios should be open, but you'll find that a lot are. So don't let it put you off. Like you touched on highlighting the skills to show that you can do the role regardless of not having X amount of years in the industry. Highlight what those transitional skills are, and the best way that you can do that is looking at the job spec. And seeing, okay, so for a community manager point of view, it's like maybe the studio is looking for you to come in as a new game, building up new fan bases and new community bases for a game that they're publishing or something like that. Well, that's great. I was working with this bit of technology, started up a community from scratch, built it up to these are the numbers. That is transferable, and make sure you go into your thought process and how you achieved those things, because that will help demonstrate for the hiring manager that you can do that when it's within the games
Oh, I
industry.
think I just
So
moved forward.
I th-
Sorry.
I think a big thing too. Well, obviously esports. You must have a passion for video games. If you're coming into the industry from outside, make sure that that's really clear what your passion is for the games industry, and go as far as like what games you love. I'd be really careful with that, just not to shoehorn you into, oh, they love first person shooters, they won't want to work on this game. Make sure that you're
Mm,
you're showing that you're kind of open minded to things. But I think No, don't be put off. Sometimes it can be really hard, Jordan, trying to break into the industry. Let's be honest. And that's why we're having talks like this today. And it can be a numbers game at times, sorry. But if you can tailor everything, like Lee and I've been discussing, it'll put you, say there are 100 CVs, it'll put you from maybe the 60 top 60 up to the top 15 up to the top 10 because you've taken the time to look through it, and you're going to be connecting those dots for the hiring manager when it comes time to review. Lee, did
Yeah.
you have something to add as well?
No, I'm just conscious of the time as well. I think that we've got a few more bits to go through, so we'll sort of whiz through. But no, like Chris was saying, it's important to bridge the gap. What have you got that's relevant based on the job spec? And don't be afraid to say, whilst I don't have this, what I do have is this. Sort of, I call it sort of addressing the elephant in the room. There's no point
Yeah.
pretending you don't have Unity experience if you've not got it. But if you say, whilst I don't have Unity, what I do have is this, and I have done this, and I have done that, which is laid out in a similar fashion to uni. You're kind of, again, yeah, you're bridging that gap between what you've got that's relevant and what they need. In terms of sort of the next slide, so formatting your CV, we've already covered most of this, to be fair, but the usual format of a CV would be name at the top, contact details, portfolio link. Like I said before, I think it's nice to put the job title of what you are, or at least what you're applying to, if you are that, aspiring programmer or 3D artist or character artist or community manager, whatever it is. Again, you're just saying, I am what you're looking for. And here's how to get in touch with me, and here's a link to my portfolio. Then you would normally, and again, it's subjective, so there's no one size fits all, but then you would normally have something we call a profile, which is which is probably the only bit of your CV that should read as sentences and paragraphs. And it's normally 4 or 5 sentences, and it should be, who are you, what have you done, why should we be interested? And this is the salesy pitch thing. And I always sort of encourage people to quantify and qualify their experience where you can. And by that, I mean, in my profile, your profile might read something like, I'm an experienced 3D artist who's worked with who's just recently completed my course in X and such and such uni. I've worked with Unreal Engine, really enjoy working with characters and environments, have a particular interest in lighting, whatever it is. But it should have a lot of these keywords, and where possible, quantifying is putting it's not enough to say, I'm a really good 3D artist. Prove it. I'm a 3D artist with 3 years of education experience, or I got rather than say I graduated with a first. That's the qualifying part. It's the stamp of approval. It's the sort of the Marks and Spencers effect. This wasn't just any degree. This was a first class honors from Abate degree or wherever. You might name drop. I did a game jam. Okay, cool. But it wasn't just any game jam. It was a game jam organized by Epic in partnership with Unreal. I recognize the name Epic. I recognize the name Unreal. You did something with respected companies, so it wasn't just anything. It was a decent game jam, for want of a better word. Again, your course results, if you were top of your class on a particular project, that's the quality stamp. It wasn't just any. I didn't just pass. I came first or second or wherever. When you're So that's the profile. Who are you? What have you done? Why should we be interested? Try and hit as many of the keywords as possible. And then the layout tends to be whatever's most relevant first. Now, once your foot's in the door and you start to get work experience, that would be first, because usually your most recent job is the most relevant. And if it's work experience, it's in reverse order, the most recent at the top, the oldest last. If you're a grad, the most relevant experience you have is your degree. So that should be the first thing we talk about, and break it down. This is the opportunity, like we're saying, to hit those bullet points. It Don't just say, oh, I did a degree in 3D art. Tell me about some of the topics that you did. We did 3D modeling and Unreal Engine. We did a course on PBR. I got a first in that, or I got a top mark. You're trying to tick these boxes in terms of what is on the job spec. You know, if they're asking for must have experience with Unreal, okay, we did a whole course on Unreal. That was my favorite one. I did great. You're getting those yeses basically. If you've got a list of skills, whatever's the most relevant skill, put that first. Again, we assume that whatever's at the top of a list is the thing you know best most of. It doesn't have to be. It should be the thing that's most relevant for the job. Be wary of putting irrelevant information in. It's not, a CV is not a summary of everything you've ever done. It's a summary of everything you've done that's relevant to the job you're applying to. Your paper round in 10 years ago isn't relevant. It just takes up space. So you can drop that off. In terms of proofreading, yes, everyone, no matter how many times you do it, will make mistakes. And you do become blind to your own mistakes. So if I'm writing something important, I might send it to Chris and ask him to have another read, because he'll see stuff that I've missed. Send it to friends. We can use AI now, though I wouldn't 100% trust AI to get it right. It'll probably make it worse. But do make sure you proofread it. In terms of email address, contact details, make sure you use a professional email address. We see some really interesting ones. I think it's useful to sort of maybe have a more professional sounding email address. Gaps in CVs, fill them if you can, even if it was personal projects, even if it was self-learning. Make sure you sort of cover those off. You don't want to leave question marks as to what you were doing for that 6 months. If you were looking for work, you can put that, that's fine. But yeah, anything to add, Chris?
I think, yeah, with the gaps in CVs in particular, it doesn't need to be like War and Peace or anything like that. Just a one-liner of what you're doing. And if you were just looking for work, make sure you add any personal projects that you're doing during that time. Is really helpful to fill in that gap. And I just a little one too is I see a lot of times where people don't want to add if they were caring for like a family member or something like that, which happens quite regularly. Make sure you add that to fill in the gap on your CV. I think it goes a long way with studios as well. Um, and with the gaps on CVs, the reason why we say explain it is because it will immediately become a question from the studio. Oh well, what were they doing here? And if you can kind of answer that question preemptively, then it just helps you get through to that from that screening stage into the phone call stage.
Yeah, definitely. Next, what have we got? Sending your app, tailoring. We've spoken a lot about that. It is the most important thing. You've got to make it easy for a hiring manager to find the info that they're looking for. Reflect the job spec in Studio again. You almost want to mirror the language that's in the job spec and the bullet points. Cover letter, include a personal statement. Some studios have space for cover letters, some expect them, some won't. Don't assume they will always read it. Any important information I would always duplicate in your CV as well as your cover letter, like portfolio links, because cover letters can get lost. It is an opportunity, though, to give yourself an edge. Always tailor it to the studio. Don't make it generic. Dear sir, madam, I am applying to your studio because I really like the stuff. Call them out by name. They need to know that you're specifically applying to them. Otherwise, it just feels like you've spam applied to everything, even if you maybe have. You've got to sort of tailor it a little bit. Use it to bridge any gaps between your experience and the job spec. This is what we're talking about with the community manager role. This is where I would maybe call out, whilst I don't have this, I do have this. Again, it's an opportunity to show you understand what you've applied for. If someone applies to a job that they haven't got the skills for and they don't address the fact they've not got the skills for, I just assume you don't know what you've applied to. Whereas if you say, whilst, I've got this and I know this sort of role requires this, what I do have is that, okay, well, at least you understand. So a big one is like TV film. TV and film is sort of a side industry to games, but some of the skills required for 3D art in TV and film are massively different to real-time 3D modeling in games. If someone's got a background in TV and film and they apply, send their CV, and they don't at any point address the differences between what it means to 3D model for TV and what it means for games, I'm going to assume you don't know the difference. which means you haven't done your homework. Um, so yeah, do be ready to call that out. Keep good records of application. Yeah, always follow up, always track what you've sent. They'll cover that off in the interview thing, I'm sure, but get in the habit of following up on submissions. Don't just wait for them to get in touch. Maybe wait a few days if you've applied to a job, and again, if you're Excel spreadsheet literate, maybe you can use that with some fancy formulas. But it's nice that, hey, I applied to this maybe like a week ago, 5 days ago, whatever it is. Keen to follow up. I would love to be considered. If there's anything else that you feel would help my application, please do let me know. All the best. It just pushes you back up to the top of the pile, if you can do that. Anything to add, Chris?
Nope, I think you covered it off perfectly.
Cool. And then next is portfolios. Normally I would spend about 3 hours on this, much to my boss's dismay. But I will whiz through because a lot of this stuff is the same as what we've already covered. This is your opportunity to really set yourself apart. You've got to make sure you're showing. Now, we're talking about tailoring CVs. It's harder to do that on portfolios because you don't know who's going to click it, when they're going to click it. You might have applied to 3 different roles with 3 different requirements or importance in terms of skills. One way to kind of tailor a portfolio is if you've got multiple different examples of a discipline, for example, 3D art, and you've got some environments and you've got some 2D concept and you've got some character stuff, you can, especially things like ArtStation, you can put those in different tabs. You can have one tab, which is everything. And then you've got your environment art tab, your character art tab, your concept art tab. If I've got an environment art specific CV, the link I'm putting on that is straight to my environment art. You hit them with the most relevant info first. So I click on that link and there you go, environment. Yes, 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 yes. Love him or her. Brilliant. Move to interview. Oh, and they've got some character stuff and they do some concept stuff as well. So first of all, we've hit them with the right stuff. So they're not opening it and going, character, no, character, no, character, no. We're also demonstrating we know what you're looking for. I know what an environment art is and what they look like, because here's all the stuff that makes a good environment art. Let me show you. And yeah, it's so important to sort of get that first impression. And as we sort of say there, many times they're more important than a CV, especially art roles. They will open your CV, read your name, click your portfolio link, and then the decision is made in there. Show personal work, show professional work, make sure your links work, make sure it's easy to access and to navigate. For code, you want a GitHub link ideally. For art, you want an ArtStation link ideally. There's Wix sites for like UI and design, or Behance as well. These sort of tend to be the industry standard ones. You can have your own website, that's fine. But I would always recommend, where possible, try to use the ones that most hiring managers are familiar with, that they know how to get around. Most artists will have an ArtStation. I know what it looks like. Art directors know what it looks like, how it's laid out. I know how to find the stuff I want quickly. If it's your website, it might be 3 or 4 links, and maybe it's not high enough res. And okay, well, where's this? Why is that going back? What's this stuff down my PC? With all these animated graphics. Try and keep it clean, well annotated where possible. On projects, you've got to tell us, or the hiring manager, what the brief was for that, what you were hoping to achieve. Here's a great picture of a car. Cool, but if the brief was to draw a plane, then it's not good. So hi, I thought, this is a project I did because I wanted to understand the limitations of this, or I wanted to try and create something in a steampunk style, which had as a hero character. So obviously my poly count is higher on hero character. I limited myself to this amount, and I wanted to build it in Unreal because I'm not too familiar with the engine. So I wanted to use Maya, and I wanted to sort of improve my skills with Maya. Cool, that's the brief. I know what you were hoping to achieve, and have you achieved it or not. You don't always get to work on whatever you want in the way you want, to the limitations that you want in a studio. In fact, you never do. You'll be working to someone else's brief. So yes, if you're a great artist at doing manga stuff, cool, but I need to understand that you can follow instructions. And can you make me a blue car? Yeah. Okay, here's this red car. It's like, I asked for a blue one. You need to stick within the lines of what the studio or the hirer needs at that time. Best work up front, similar to the other principles. Make sure you're showing, the most relevant, which is usually your best up front. Less is more, quality over quantity, totally agree. It's okay to have work in progress or slightly older pieces, but I would put them on their own tab. Let the hiring manager find them. It does add flavor and shows your progression, but again, it should never be the here, look at how good I am tab. Tailor to the role, like we discussed. Have a diversity of content. Very rarely in the games industry will you always work on the stuff that you like working on. Take yourself out of your comfort zone. If you mostly like doing cars, cool, but you're going to need to show that you can do a helicopter from time to time. So put that in. That's the self-awareness. Okay, let me have a look at my portfolio. What is it heavy with? It's really heavy. I keep picking up manga characters, but okay, it's really heavy, chibi, cutesy, Stardew Valley type stuff. Okay, but I need to show that I can do other stuff and that I'm not a one-trick pony. So maybe I do a horror thing, a Resident Evil thing, or a bit of hard surface perhaps. And again, the same with code. Include personal work, which we spoke about. ArtStation, Wix, GitHub, they tend to be the industry standards. A big one, and this is linked to LinkedIn, do check out other portals. It's easy for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, just add more, do more. It's hard to know where to start. How do I show it? What do I show? How much do I show? LinkedIn is brilliant. You can search other people in the industry. If you're a 3D artist, I would search 3D artist based in the UK and pick a studio that you admire, that you like the look of. And you're looking for someone who's recently started in the last 6 months at Rockstar, Naughty Dog, or whoever. Usually, especially art and code, they will have a portfolio link, or you can Google their name and portfolio. Look at what they've got. How did they show it? How do they lay it out? What looks cool? What's interesting? What stands out? That's your competition. If they've got the job in the last 6 months, it's a very good chance it's that portfolio that got them the job. That's what you're up against. Now, don't get disheartened if you find the senior lead art director from Naughty Dog. His portfolio is going to be amazing. You're not going to be there yet for 20 years. But look at it's a nice way to get ideas. Oh, I love the way they did that. I love that camper van thing, but in like an ultramarine style. That could be cool. I could do something like that actually. Or this whole piece of work, I could polish that up and make that look that way. Online studio tests. Again, this is a great way to demonstrate you can work to a brief. Another one is ArtStation. ArtStation run monthly challenges, usually 10 or 11 different versions of the same one. It forces people to work to a brief in a style that they might not be used to sort of industry standard spec. They're great ways just to bulk out a portfolio and learn and demonstrate what you can do. In terms of time, I know you want to sort of wrap up, Leo, a little bit before the other one. Is there any other questions or anything like that that have come through? Q&A?
Don't have any other questions just yet that I can see. Oh no, we've just had one from Albin there. I don't know if you want to read that out, Chris, perhaps.
Of course, yeah. So
Yeah.
from Albin, hi Lee and Chris, thank you so much for the insight. I am a recent graduate with an esports and interior design background. That's a cool combination. I'm looking for junior roles within the games industry. What do you think would be a suitable role for someone with my skills? At the moment, I'm applying for a variety of roles such as QA and junior designer roles. Okay, so I think with your skill set, so what were you doing with an esports? I think would be a big question as well. But I'll answer it as a general like you're looking to get into the games industry, and it's not through a specific avenue. I think QA is a really great way to get into the get your foot in the door within the games industry, and it helps you see a lot of the different challenges of the throughout the game dev cycle. Gets you familiar with a lot of the technology that's used within the game studios and seeing how the team operates. And then from there, you can either have a great career within QA. There are a lot of really good opportunities within QA at game studios, or you can kind of look at branching out and finding your path as to where you want to go. It's like, okay, so I've kind of figured a lot of these things out. I really want to get into design, so I'll take these kind of courses, or it might be, okay, I was great at you kind of getting everybody within the QA team organized and making sure that we're hitting these milestones. Great, you can start looking into production rules, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm always a big advocate for QA when you're just looking to get into the games industry at an entry level position.
Cool.
Anything to add?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's sound advice. Really, really interesting stuff. I think an awful lot of people have started their journey in QA. So yeah, really, really good. Got another question coming.
I'm an almost in sound design. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's gone.
I don't know where that's gone. That's
Questions
disappeared. No problem. Well,
Yeah.
I hate to draw this to a close sort of early on. Maybe there's some more questions coming in.
Oh, now you choose to ask questions when we're running out of time. Right. Let me quickly. Oh, Jesus, they've all come through. Is there a backlog? What I will say is, if you do have any other questions, find me and Chris on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
and that'll force you to make LinkedIn profiles as well if you haven't already. And we'll do our best to answer. You can poke us on there. Just mention obviously that you've been on the Yuki call. Just trying to see if there's any of these that I can quickly whiz through. CV size, CV is as long as it needs to be, as long as it's well written, it doesn't matter. I do think as a graduate or an entry level, it shouldn't really be longer than 1 page. 2 or 3 is fine if you're 10 years plus in the industry, but longer than that, then you're probably not formatting it right. Art CV should be attractive. No, art CVs, they can be a little bit, they're not your portfolio. I've seen CVs artists, they get over the top and it's just then difficult to read and find the info I want. The CV is not your portfolio. Your portfolio is. So yes, you can jazz it up a little bit, do some cool font, maybe an image in the background in the top left or right or somewhere, but don't go crazy. Let the portfolio do the speaking. Cool. Right, back to you, Leon. Sorry.
No. If you wanted to pop your LinkedIn links in the chat whilst we have a few minutes, that would be fantastic.
You're asking me to multitask now. I don't even know I can open it. Hold on.
Chris, well done. Oh no, that's yeah. 2 seconds.
Chris, can you get mine?
Hold on. Get yours up really quick here.
I didn't know you were going to ask me this. Yeah.
No, it's all good. It all makes sense.
5 new messages. Oh, there we go. Yuki, that's Chris. Right, yeah. Stick mine on there, and yeah, you'll find it. But if you just search Lee Burns Amiqus, you'll find me. And like I said, feel free to reach out. Obviously, mention the Yuki thing, and we'll answer any sort of additional questions. But yeah, good luck with the next one. Now we've helped you get your foot in the door into an interview. You got to now you got to learn what to do when you're in there.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone.
Best of luck.